I watched The Brutalist this last weekend, and it was good. This won a lot of major awards at the Golden Globes, and I'd imagine it does at least decently at this year's Oscars. This is directed by Brady Corbet, who I actually liked a lot as an actor before he moved behind the camera around 2013. He was awesome in the 2007 American remake of Funny Games, which is kind of one of my favorite movies ever at this point. And you might remember him from stuff like Mysterious Skin and Lars von Trier's Melancholia as well. I'd yet to see any of his directorial work before this, so I was intrigued, especially when I found out that this would be a 3.5-hour epic post-World War II drama. Not sure I've ever seen a singular movie this long, and that kind of held me at bay from watching this until I knew it was going to be worth it. And I'm here to tell you that it mainly is. There's even a 15-minute intermission at about the hour-and-a-half mark, and that was very welcome. More movies should have intermissions. It was quite nice. This is called The Brutalist because it refers to a style of architecture called brutalism our main character employs upon arriving to America from a post-war, post-Holocaust Europe. I don't want to spoil too much right now, but as you'd expect from the runtime, it's basically just about this guy's life. The film itself is filled with so much visual poise and fresh filmmaking ideas. It's presented very creatively and seems to care a lot about giving a new approach to all the creative decisions that actually go into filmmaking. What's good is it's mostly not different for the sake of being different. Most of it is very purposeful, especially on different scales. A lot of the major stuff I won't spoil, but one example is how in the beginning our protagonist gets on a bus and the title credits roll in the fashion of a map, much like a bus stop map that you would see taking you from station to station. It's just a small, visually stimulating detail, but it's nice to see a level of care going into making sure elements of the film complement one another. The cinematography is gorgeous for the most part, with a handful of shots I could literally frame and hang on the wall. There's this one shot in particular of the characters in a quarry entering a tunnel where their silhouettes line up nicely. It's still stuck in my mind. There's a few shots of cities that look a little too much like stock footage to me, but I think that might have been an intentional way to contrast the work of our main character. I have a few things I'm not so high on, so we should probably get to that. There were a lot of unique editing choices, and some of them worked, but a lot of them just didn't. They were abrupt or clunky. Sometimes the film had a tendency to get heavy-handed with its montages. There's a few scenes where they play music and radio narration, kind of just explaining shit that to me just really didn't totally need to be there. The acting was largely solid. Adrien Brody was good, as always. I thought Guy Pearce's Australian accent slipped through a few times, and I don't know why, I just can't ever get into Felicity Jones and her performances. She's doing fine here, but I don't know, she just often seemed like the weakest in certain scenes. Okay, I want to get into more analysis type stuff here, so if you haven't seen the movie, this is a warning to skip ahead to the spot that I've shown you on the screen here. Okay, you've been warned. This is it. Here we go. To me, the biggest message or whatever I got from The Brutalist is how the American dream and the concept of the grind that's often sold to you is not as glamorous as it's presented. In fact, this might be the best argument I've seen for being anti-grind in a while. The final quote from an older Sophia towards the end of the movie about the journey really not being better than the destination kind of drives that point home. It made me reflect on this unfortunately very true comedy bit I saw from Partis Parker.
So that sounds great. If grinding guaranteed winning, I'd be all for it. But not everyone who grinds wins. And we know that because math. So that's the wrong attitude to have. Just because there's a likelihood of failure doesn't mean that you shouldn't have lofty ambitions. You should shoot for the moon. Because if you fall short, you'll land in the stars. That sounds lovely. Until you remember that the stars are not the moon. Like, what do I care about the stars for if I'm trying to get to the moon? Like, if I'm in Canada and I'm shooting for Disneyland, I'm not going to be okay with falling short and landing in North Dakota. Like, even the people of North Dakota don't want to be in North Dakota, man. The state's got a negative net migration rate. Even refugees are just like, we're good. People say, oh, well, it's the journey that matters, not the destination. It's just like, yo, what are you talking about? The best part about going to Disneyland is being in Disneyland. It's not getting to Disneyland. Like, no kid ever looks around the inside of his minivan and thinks to himself, can't get better than this.
That whole routine is really funny. You should look it up when you're done with this. But yeah, this movie really aims to turn whatever we think of as the experience of finding success in America completely upside down. That very effective opening shot of the Statue of Liberty being turned on its head echoes exactly what Corbett will be going for over the next 3+ hours. If nothing else, this film is a great summation of how immigrants are treated in the US. We both want them here to do all of our hard labor and bring us cultural enrichment, but we also hate them for being all up in our space and overshadowing our way of life with theirs. The American dream is kind of an oxymoron, especially if you're not American. Either assimilate or be outcast. That seems to be the notion here. We saw this perfectly when he goes to live with his cousin in the beginning, who has completely converted to an Americanized lifestyle. Laszlo just doesn't fit in right out of the gate, and navigating life from after he's kicked out is physically and emotionally taxing. This is why I think the length is mostly justified, to show that journey part, it's not some fantastical adventure. It's something most people actually want to forget and check out of. Embracing the process is kind of a shitty mentality sold to you by the elite. If you look at it through the eyes of an architect, they don't give a shit about anything other than the final design and result. The process of building something, whether it's a life or career, is arduous, often soul-crushing work, where many often sell out just to perpetuate the same beliefs to those that come after them. The completed, uncompromised vision is what we want, and don't let anyone trick you out of that. I think back to when Laszlo cries in the diner after being shown photos of his previous work in Europe. It's not just because he misses being an artist and he's currently shoveling coal for a living. To me, it was seeing the fruits of his labors that made him emotional. I don't know. Stimulating conversation, if I do say so. Okay, change of topic. Actually, that's partly actually something I wanted to get into. Is it just me, or is everyone super gay in this movie? Just really closeted gay. Nobody has a partner anymore, and the people that do, well, they don't really seem to like them that much. Is there a message here about men's psychology? It's almost implied that Laszlo and a few other people he meets, including his buddy Gordon, were lovers. And it's definitely implied that Van Buren was abusing his son too, based on his reaction to, the news. But yeah, that's about all I have to say about my interpretations of the events that we saw. I love the ambition this movie has and how it pulled off a relatively small budget as far as big period pieces go. The music is grand and triumphant. It helps add even more scale to such a huge story. Now, there is some controversy surrounding this film, a lot of which I haven't quite made up my mind about entirely. Like, yes, using AI to assist an actor in sounding more like they're speaking another language is shitty, especially when there are other hardworking actors who will learn entirely new dialects for one role. But also, it does give the audience a better experience. I'd rather hear something that sounds and looks authentic, but that's kind of the problem here, isn't it? I'm feeling an 8 out of 10 on this. It's probably more like a 7 than a 9, but it does accomplish a lot, and that shouldn't be totally discounted. It'll be interesting to see the discourse about this movie leading up to Oscars night. So, yeah, check it out. It's in theaters right now. I'll see you later.